You're now listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene and you are listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Together with me is John Chua. He'll be sharing on the practices of FGM, or Female Genital Mutilation in Asia. He's a documentary filmmaker and he has been traveling all over Asia documenting the practice. First of all, hi John.
Hello, Arlene. Thank you very much for inviting me on your show.
What exactly is FGM? Is it a term that is acceptable and common in Asia?
Well, the term FGM is a globally accepted term, female genital mutilation. But actually, the 4 types of genital cutting, female genital cutting, according to the World Health Organization, WHO, and I tend not to use, in the Asian context, I tend not to use FGM as a term. I tend to use female genital cutting. And as you know, the procedure and the term is known differently in different countries within the Asian and Middle Eastern context. So there are actually many different terms for it. Some people, some women are taken back or offended by the term FGM because it contains the word mutilation. We've met people who say that, they're against mutilation, but there's nothing wrong with cutting and so forth. And they'll say, we're not mutilated, but yes, we are cut. So I use the more umbrella term of female genital cutting. But often in the Asian context, it's also known as female circumcision, which to me is not quite correct also because it's not necessarily what we know as circumcision either.
To what degree would you consider mutilation?
What is mutilation then?
Yeah.
That's not really for me to judge. That's not really for me to judge because some people may say that even a tiny cut, a nick, and so forth with a knife would be mutilation, and some people say no, that's not mutilation. So it's going to vary from person to person, but of course, there are people who say that all of this is mutilation. And I think, as I said, the World Health Organization lists 4 types of FGM, and it includes everything from severe forms to just gentle, more gentle rather, scraping or licking or something like that.
From your traveling and your documenting of different practices of FGM or FGC in this case, what are the different degrees of cuttings that you have seen?
I've traveled all the way from Iraq to Southeast Asia, to Singapore, documenting and interviewing people about the subject, and it varies widely. In Oman, for example, in south of Oman, southern Oman, is the complete removal of the clitoris. In Malaysia and Southeast Asia, it could be sort of like more like pinpricks or needle pricks of the clitoral hood, supposedly, allegedly, the clitoral hood. So it varies completely. In places like Yemen, I've heard. I didn't travel to Yemen because the place is, a war zone right now. But it's well documented in the past by other researchers that it's widespread in Yemen, and it can include the sewing of the vagina, for example. Yes.
So they literally sew it, the whole thing for the vagina?
They leave a small hole for liquids.
I see.
Yes.
When it comes to such practices, do they focus both on female and male circumcision in all these cultures that you've been?
Generally speaking, this issue is a taboo in the individual cultures we're talking about. So it's very odd, actually, for someone like me, who's an outsider and male, to be interviewing people and researching this topic. It's very hard, actually, to do it. But I find it interesting because in these countries where it exists, they tend to have, in these communities where they exist, they tend to have gender inequality. Mm-hmm. I find that this FGC is actually a symptom of larger gender inequality issues. So in all the cultures that I visited that have FGC, you can be sure that there are some larger issues regarding gender equality. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's important for us to look at it.
So it's a bigger issue. It's not just about the cutting. It's about how the society there view the different standards of genders. Mm-hmm. Perhaps the male gender has greater power than the female gender. Social power, I mean.
Yes, if you want to put it that way, yes. Definitely there is an imbalance in power structure. For example, in many societies where FGC is practiced, the reason given is often they want to control female sexuality. You hear stuff from the Dawoodi Boras communities, for example, saying that women have too much sexual energy and it needs to be moderated. And in Pattani in southern Thailand, I hear similar things that women's sexuality is, if not controlled, will run wild, right? So if there's such a fetish or concern really about female chastity, why isn't there equal concern about male chastity or male, promiscuity? Mm-hmm. There's no evidence actually that female sexual energy is larger than more than men. I'm not aware of any scientific studies or any scientific basis of that judgment. Mm-hmm. So it's a culturally imposed judgment that I do not know the scientific explanations for as yet.
Do you know
but it's widely believed. It's widely believed in some of these societies.
Do you know the origin of female circumcision?
That's lost in history. People often say it comes from Africa, and that's in dated times of the pharaohs. Yes, there's some evidence to that, and widely believed that it came out of Africa. But I don't find the explanation convincing either, because recent research and evidence has found that really there's a community in South America, a tribal community of Imbara Indians in Colombia. It's a small community, and the women there practice FGC on the girls, and they have different explanations for it either. I've read one explanation that says that if they thought that if you don't cut the clitoris, it will grow to be the size of a penis. I don't know how true that explanation was, but it's believed, by the women in that society, and it's completely non-Islamic origins. Mm-hmm. So in fact, while you can find FGC in Islamic communities, in some Islamic communities, you can also find it in non-Islamic communities. And that's why I'm interested in this topic, because ultimately it's about the control of human sexuality and female sexuality in particular. Yeah. And a complete misunderstanding of the female body.
That's true. Anyway, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll discuss further on the female genital mutilation in Asia.